Welcome to the Gamut of Performance Podcast, episode 17. On this episode of the podcast, I get to talk with Coach Mike Kamal. Coach Kamal is the Assistant Athletic Director for Strength and Conditioning at Merrimack University and has been there for over 10 years. He made the program what it is today and is continuing to take it above and beyond what anyone expected it could be. Coach Kamal and I get to talk about training for hockey and the nuances that are involved in that. And then we also talk about professional development. Thanks for joining us, and without further ado, here is Coach Kamal. Coach Kamal, thank you so much for being on today. Really looking forward to talking to you. I really appreciate your time. And so for the listeners at home, will you just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, your motivation, and how you got to where you are?
Okay, well, first, let me thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you, Coach. It's a tremendous opportunity to kind of talk about what we're doing up here at Merrimack and a little bit of my background and kind of the uniqueness of the situation that we're in. So get it going here. So I grew up in southern New Hampshire, went to high school, played all the sports and everything. And it was actually, we talk about career capital in that term. Very early on, we had the football coaches. They were all, Division I players and all that. One of our defensive coordinator was actually played in the NFL for a bit and started turning me on freshman year to really start, you got to lift weights, you got to do this, you got to be bigger, stronger. Started showing me the old Bigger, Faster, Stronger magazines and this is perspective mid-90s. So we started seeing the BFS system and everything and started to really dig deep into that and through that, I started to write programs and everything. I actually started writing programs for our high school football team and our track team as well. From there, I headed off to a small school in southwestern New Hampshire called Keene State College. Mind you, at this point, I switched my majors 3 times in my first 3 semesters. I went from education to physical education to health science was the major. I ended up getting my degree in. And going into my senior year, we actually got our first strength coach. So at that point, I had no clue that the field actually existed. So I was playing rugby up there. I was training our teams. I was writing programs for our teams, writing programs for some of the other athletes at Keene State. And it just kind of all fell in that, got my first true mentor in the field. She introduced me to strength and conditioning, started interning with her my senior year. And that led to the path of getting an internship with Mike Boyle's Strength and Conditioning. Ended up working there for a year. After my internship, went to Springfield College. Was a GA over there for a couple years. Meanwhile, got some internships, great experiences with Holy Cross, University of Iowa football. And, so obviously I've been so lucky to just cross paths with some tremendous coaches along the way. And then from there, was at Bucknell, worked with their football program for 2 years. And then got a phone call one day, wanted to try to get back to the Northeast. And Merrimack College called and, right around the fall of 2007. And that fast forwards us to right now, in the summer of 2018. And it's been pretty cool at Merrimack College because I've actually had 3 title changes. I was hired as the head strength coach. Then I got promoted to the director of strength and conditioning as we started to grow our athletic department. We started off at 16 teams. Now we're up to 24 teams. Wow. Okay. And 2 years ago, I was promoted to assistant athletic director, overseeing the strength and conditioning department. As I'm sure we'll touch on, where we're upwards of about 12 staff members in some facet. Okay,
that's amazing. That is quite the journey. So let's just dive into a little bit of the training piece, right? So you work with hockey, correct?
Correct. I work with hockey, field hockey, women's basketball, and softball directly.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the structure that you have for training hockey and some of the nuances to be aware of when working with them.
Yeah, so I think I've kind of run the whole perspective of, we got to be very, very cautious of this and this and the forward flex and everything. So I would say, and this goes back to my roots with Mike Boyle, it's, we think just well-structured, organized training is of the utmost importance.
Okay.
If we take care of that, if we look at the human organism of, we need to create balance in their structure, in their posture. We're naturally asymmetrical, yes, but we also need to make sure, like, evaluate, do a needs analysis on the sport, and then do a further needs analysis on each individual athlete, and then we can't have this one size fits all perspective. So I would actually say, like, the nuances of training a hockey player, be aware that they're spending the majority of their time on an 1/8-inch wide piece of steel, that their rest periods from any high intensity intervals are sitting down, forward flexed. If they're not, they're not going for 45 seconds of high intensity work. They're bursting for a few seconds, then they're gliding and trying to understand how to interpret the whole play. So I think to finalize the answer here, the nuances is just we got to do a needs analysis on everything. And we're actually just starting up the tenure of our second coach, and understand that what the coach is, what his style is.
Yeah.
And this goes for any sport that we work with. Like, just because they're playing a particular sport doesn't mean that that's the style that they're going to play. So,
okay.
So I would say that those are the nuances that I look at when dealing with the hockey.
Okay, fair enough. So diving a little bit deeper into that, right? So how does the speed and conditioning look like with ice hockey players?
Okay, so I would say the first thing, I think if we follow a lot of the material out there right now, like, we have to understand that the aerobic system is so critical, and I think at times it's not a very glamorous, because we think aerobic, we think just go pound pavement for 30 minutes, but what we actually do is it's more about sustaining a heart rate level for a prolonged period of time. So we actually accomplish that not by doing our traditional conditioning, but what we call our athletic development period, where we do, some of our jumps, our throws, our mobility, some of our speed work, and sustaining a level, heart rate level for a prolonged period of time. Meanwhile, I would say that our speed, so in the off season, we train 4 days a week, and I'd say we do 2 linear days and 2 lateral change of direction days.
Okay.
One thing that we really focus on is, this kind of comes from Tony Holler, is we want to measure things, we want to rank and publish, so every guy knows where they stand. Every time we do our whether it's flying 10s, start 10s, lateral bound to a 10-yard sprint, we want to know, like, be able to quantify everything that they're doing. So we time every time we do speed work, we're timing it. Every time we do any type of vertical jump or depth drop or anything, we're always measuring that, so we know exactly where we are, versus saying, go do lean fall run for 3 sets of 10 yards, or 3 sets of vertical jumps. We want to know exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. So I think, like, as far as the conditioning and everything, this is like a lesson we try to put onto our interns and our graduate students, is understand the delayed effects of the aerobic system, glycolytic system, and the ATP PCR system. Understand that the aerobic system is the base of all recovery. With speed work, make sure we're filling all our buckets. What does an athlete have to do? They have to accelerate in a linear position, a change of direction, and also side to side. So we got to make sure that we're always addressing all of those. Okay.
And kind of going back to one of the earlier points you were talking about, the needs analysis, right? So what kind of key performance indicators are you kind of looking at, and what are you tracking with this population?
Okay, so I actually was just having this conversation with a recruit earlier this week. So in the weight room, the things that we track, we look at the safety. We use safety bars a lot.
Okay.
We'll actually test out our RFE, rear foot elevated split squats, and then our also just regular split squats. We still will do some bilateral squatting, and this is something that we've seen over the years. We can't always put square pegs into round holes. So some of our guys that are 6'4", 6'5", long limbs, short torsos, are they the best squatters? No. Can they squat? Yeah. Do we really want to test them in those? Like, no. Yeah. I just see it as a potential. Do no harm is one of my mentalities.
Okay.
I just don't really see the value in that. You will test bench. we'll test the hang clean from above the knee,
Mm-hmm.
chin up.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do a 3-rep max. So those are the things that we'll test in the weight room.
Mm-hmm.
Importantly, the key performance indicator that I view that the weight room stuff needs it to is we'll test the vertical jump.
Mm-hmm.
We'll test forward jump, vertical jump on the just jump mats to look at an elastic response.
Mm-hmm.
We'll test the standing long jump, 10-yard sprint, the pro shuttle, and we try to be consistent with our conditioning test. And different coaches like different things, but it's pretty old school. But the 300-yard shuttle, it's a simple measure of fitness, and it's also to see how people can handle a little bit of adversity.
Okay, fair enough. And so you mentioned the Just Jump mat, right? So what other pieces of technology do you guys use?
Yeah, so we use the Just Jump mat. We have a few gym-aware units that we'll use for different times of the year. We're looking at peak power or average velocity. It gets a little tricky because we only have 4 units right now. So it's a way to cycle the athletes through the particular racks that we have. With hockey, we also use the First Beat heart rate monitor system. We just did that last year, so we're still kind of in our infancy and understanding what we're trying to do with that. We also have the Zephyr platform as well. That was actually a purchase made through a collaboration with our grad department. So we have utilized that with some of our teams, but we don't have a full system. We only have about 15 units. Now, as far as technology, I would say that that's kind of our mainstay. One other thing that I think this falls into technology is we do a lot of wellness questionnaires. So that's more of like a data analysis, but I would say that helps us to really understand where the athlete is at, and kind of like some of those, if you want to say the kind of those internal metrics that without actually measuring them, we can get a sense of where each athlete is at on whatever day.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So where do you see, a lot of people go back and forth with this, some people are polar opposites, but where do you see training and technology going in the next 5 years, right? Do you think it's going to rise? Do you think it's going to fall? Or how do you think it's going to impact us?
So I would, anyone that knows me knows that I am not an early adopter by any means, and I am very reluctant to jump on board with things. I kind of patiently wait, and then once I have a grasp of things, I jump in, and that's how I really felt with technology. I had a lot of experience with the Tendo units from previous internships and places of employment. The gym-awares were great. The heart rate monitors and everything are great. I think there's going to be natural ebbs and flows, and I think we have already seen that with the advances in technology. One of the things is, rather than just go out and buy all these pieces of technology, we need to make sure that it's going to be sustainable in our system. I know at Merrimack College, we are working and operating on a limited budget, so we have to be very smart about how we utilize our money. With the First Beat system, there's a lot of work involved with that. Anyone who utilizes, whether it's First Beat, Polar, Catapult, or Zephyr or anything, there's a lot of analytics involved with it. You got to analyze that data, then you got to clean it up, you got to present it. Most importantly, you have to make sure that your coaches see the value in what you're trying to do. Because if a sport coach doesn't see the value in what you're trying to do, it doesn't really make sense that you're going to put all this in and try to measure everything, but at the end of the day, it's really not affecting the overall health and performance of this student athlete.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's a really good point, because a lot of people just want to use technology, right? But like like you said, if the sport coach isn't on board, then it's futile. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. So
correct. So I think that we're going to keep advancing. I've just been doing a little research on the perch system. One of our colleagues up at UMass Lowell, he's been talking about it and everything, and over at Boston University, they've been talking about that a lot, and hey, it seems a little bit easier to use, which we're always looking for that. Any type of technology, there's always going to be something about it. We also utilize the Dasher system, which we actually just purchased this past year. We've been using the Brower speed traps before that. The Dasher, it's the simplicity. It's easier to use, but there are some flaws in there. So, but we're working through that. So
Okay.
I think technology is going to keep advancing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just, we just got to be smart about, not trying to take on too much, and then we end up sitting behind a computer, 40 of our 60 hours a week, just trying to analyze data. And you got to make sure that this is a service field. It's not we're not hired as collegiate strength coaches to necessarily do all analytic work.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? And so moving back to another earlier point, right? So you mentioned kind of in your intro about basically your development and how you got promoted and stuff like that. So will you talk just a little bit about one of your biggest struggles in developing your department into what it is now?
Yeah, so I think, so since this is entering year 12 right now, I think it's just been, we started off, in 07, we had 16 varsity sports. Now we have 24. Started off, it was just myself. Now we have, 3 full-timers. One of them is actually the operations director for women's ice hockey, who also serves as their training conditioning coach.
Okay.
We have 6 grad students. So I think all along the way, we've been growing as an institution, and athletics is lucky enough to feel the trickle down. So I'd say one of the struggles is just really having a clear sense of what direction we want to take this. Because, something that always resonates with me is always seek the opportunities that present themselves. But it can be kind of tough when you're staring at a blank board, trying to understand, like, where can we take this field? Like, how are we trying to legitimize what we do? But then in our institution here, what's realistic? Like, it would be great to have, 3, 4, 5 full-time coaches all, working with 1 or 2 teams. But the reality is that's not feasible. So I think the struggle has just been really to sit down and brainstorm, like, what's that like? What's my big ask? But then what's the optimal position? And then what's the realistic position? So it's just a lot of, I would say, planning short term. Also, as a leader, you always have to kind of be forward focused. If you're focused on today and today only, you're not presenting a very clear vision for what you're trying to do, and people really don't want to invest in those that can present a clear vision.
No, that makes sense. And so another thing on that, right? So how has your organization and Foresight kind of evolved from when you first started to now?
Drastically. So, I came right out of grad school, and I was a director of football strength and conditioning. Completely at the age of 25 for a Division I institution, and I was very, very. I was probably qualified in some regards, but I was so early on. It was trial by fire. Then I came at the age of 27 to take over an entire athletic department and not be a one sport strength coach. And I would say something that's really helped me is I've had some really strong mentors outside of the field of strength and conditioning. One of them was our director of sports medicine here, and she just she really believed in what I could do. She saw something in me, and it just really challenged my thought process. And then one of our former athletic directors was really challenging me to have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. Just keep thinking, like, what can we do? What can we do? How can we continue to grow what we're doing? Then our current athletic director, he's probably one of the most influential professionals in my life right now. Just as far as how he challenges me to constantly be thinking, how can we optimize all of our resources? And, it's not about working 100 hours. It's about working, whatever you need to work to get the job done. So it just to be very, very compartmentalized everything that we do. And just create, an organized, structured development system for the student athletes, but also for our staff.
Okay, that makes sense. And that segues perfectly into this next question, right? So talking about staff, so I've heard a little bit about your grad fellow program. So will you kind of just touch on that and your approach to developing people? Okay.
So our grad fellow program, we're actually entering our 4th year. It was kind of in conjunction with the start of our graduate program here. It's a master's degree it's a 1-year program, so it's an accelerated. It's a Master's of Science in Exercise and Sports Science.
Okay.
And just from developing a very strong relationship with the dean, just said, hey, any chance that we can get grad students and start to get like GAs and everything?
Yeah.
He's like, and then not really expecting much. He said, sure. But we call them grad fellows here because it's a 1 year. It's kind of institutionally, that's what we call them. So grad students, we actually this year we're up to 6.
Okay.
So they say, when you do a good job of something, you get rewarded with more work. So I guess we're doing a good job because each year we get one more grad student, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's one more person that you're responsible for. So they'll arrive on campus actually next week, which is going to be the start of preseason. So it's the first week of August, and graduation is the end of May. So recognizing what makes it unique, it's not it's not the 2-year program that I went through where, we were 4 semesters with the team and we had a stipend and we had housing, all these things.
Yeah.
We got to recognize who we are, make sure we're in the recruiting process where we're very clear with the expectations. So what we do is we assign each of our grad students 2 teams directly that they're responsible for. And then they're also assigned at least one team of secondary supervision. So each of the teams that I oversee, I bring one of our grad students with me directly, so they're with me as much as possible. But most importantly, it provides a lot of opportunities for them to get to practice, to get to know the coaches, to be able to travel with the teams and everything. And one of our men's lacrosse team won the national championship last year, and the grad student was actually able to go through to everything with that team, from all the banquets and everything. So it's just great to really, I think that makes it a really unique experience for these young strength coaches, and something that can, it makes it a little more attractive in the recruiting process. So, recognize who we are. It's a unique situation, and roll with it.
No, that's fantastic. So one of these, next question is really important to me. So how do you balance building your department, right, and also self-care? I feel like self-care is one of the neglected areas in our field. And so what are some things that people are doing wrong in this area?
Okay. So how do I balance building the department and also self-care? I think you're probably catching on that very structured, regimented, and organized in my personal life, as well as my professional life. And I think what we need to recognize as strength and conditioning personnel is, we talk about this balance of our lives. And, this is a discussion we had a lot this past year. So, personally, and, I'll say balance is kind of BS. There's no such thing as a 50-50 balance between personal and professional. I think there's certain times of the year where it might be, 80% strength and conditioning and 20% personal life outside of here. But that's I would almost say the sacrifice that we need to make, and we need to make sure everyone in our life is perfectly clear with that. I have a great support system at home. My wife is very supportive of everything that I do, and I would say that she allows me to do all this. But I think you got to prioritize your self-care, whether it's, for most of us, it's training. I love to hike. I love to get outdoors and travel. I love to be around, my wife and our child. But it's also understanding that we're hired to do a particular job. So it's not about, I don't wear the hours as a badge of honor, and I try not to relay that mentality to our grad students. But I say, if you're here for 8 hours, you better be incredibly effective with that 8 hours. Or if you're here for 14, 16 hours, we need to evaluate, is this the best way to do things? So it's just trying to, be very structured, plan out your day, evaluate it. And, that's what I find works for us here. And it's not necessarily going to work for everyone, but it's definitely you need to recognize what is going to keep you sane. Some people, it's, I like to read a lot. That tends to keep my mind in check. I like solitude as well. That's my self-care. I guess you can call it that. And I understand that sometimes of the year I get more of that opportunity than others. So it's just when the opportunity is there, take it.
Yeah.
Because like start of preseason, it's
Yeah.
We all know in this field, like preseason is going to be very demanding because you got all the athletes going back and
no, definitely, I agree with you. Yeah, the solitude thing is my thing too. You know what I mean? It's weird because a lot of strength coaches are introverts, by nature, but then extroverts on the floor. So it's like that solitude is so important for me. So I agree.
It's a very interesting point because I completely am in agreement with you that left to my own, I would probably be just in the mountains camping all the time. But but as soon as it's go time, when you're in front of that group and talking to a recruit, whatever it is, it's you got to represent yourself in the institution that is literally funding your livelihood. So introverted by nature and extroverted by career. I agree with that.
Yeah. So the next segment to that, right? So as far as like communication and being extroverted, right? So how important is it to network with other professionals, and what's your approach in this?
Oh, it's incredibly important. I truly believe that, the message to everyone is, you gotta be a good person first. Like says, be a CNP, the most important certification you can ever have, certified nice person. Yeah. Because if you're a good person, people are going to remember you. Yeah. It's the way you and I actually originally connected was through one of our former grad students. Just said you might want to talk to Lon. Like he seems like he'd be a good person to connect with, and that's how we got connected. And and starting to build a professional relationship here. But be a good person. Remember names. That's a big thing. Networking is actually pretty challenging for me. It's exhausting.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm sure after this, I'm going to get in the car and just kind of unwind a little bit. And be by myself. I'm with it. It's the follow up as well. So when we go to these conferences and whether it's you talk to someone in the hallway or you see them out at night, have a beer, have some food with them. It's the points of contact, I believe, is how we continue to strengthen and build our network. So it's, whether it's shooting you a text, saying, hey, hope the holidays are going good, sending you a greeting card, recognizing when your birthday is, remembering these little things, make those impressions on others. The other part about a network is, don't be afraid to cold call or email someone. Whenever I get an email from an aspiring coach or I get a phone call from an aspiring coach or a current coach, anyone, I'm always going to give them my time because I've been so blessed along my career trajectory here that people have just given me so much. I'm feeling that I'm starting to be in the position to give back, to provide the platform, to help others grow. Because you never know when your next where your next job will come from. I can tell you right now, the reason I got the phone call from Merrimack was at a previous internship. One of the assistant coaches just got to know him really well. He was always hanging around the weight room. I used to stay after the internship and just kind of hang around that hockey staff. Didn't see myself going into collegiate hockey, and he bounced around a little bit, ended up at Merrimack as an assistant, and then somehow my name came up, and the head coach gave me a call while I was working with the football team, and he's like, you want to come here? And it's just so I truly believe that your network helps more than your resume ever will.
No, I agree. That's great to hear too. That's some really good stuff, right? And so moving into kind of this last segment, just a couple rapid fire questions, right? So I'm just going to ask you, and you just kind of tell me whatever you're thinking, whatever first thing on your mind, right? So this first one. So what's the best advice you've ever been given?
Actually, was a football coach in high school. One of the first men to really impact me athletically. He said, "Live every day like it's your last, because one day you're going to be right." You just can't take anything for granted, personally and professionally.
Yeah, that's powerful. And so in contrast to that, what's the worst advice you've ever been given?
You gave me these questions a little while ago, and I've been struggling to really think about that, because I would actually say, and maybe this is also a trait of strength coaches, I'm incredibly stubborn. And if I don't really respect you and you give me some kind of bogus advice, I'm just not going to listen to it. I don't think I've done a really good job listening to everyone when they give me advice. it's people that I really respect as a mentor, the people I listen to. So worst advice, I think.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
No, I actually like that. You got the filter on. So, and that's very important, right? Because there's so much stuff coming in that we just gotta, sometimes shut it down and filter what's actually getting to us. So I think that's a great answer. The last one in this little segment, right? So what's something that you will carry with you always, whether it's a quote, an idea, a mentality, or like an experience?
So I kind of got a few here. Mm-hmm. I don't like quotes, but I like kind of little mantras here and there.
Okay.
I would say that I have a very strong, optimistic attitude, and my mindset is to never quit, never give up, and that was instilled in me very, very young, actually from my parents, because of some challenges that we faced early on in my life. But another thing is, don't look at things as discipline or punishment. Look at things as teachable moments. So I think that's been something that's really helped me out to become a better mentor.
Yeah.
Is everyone's going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But can they learn from those?
Yeah.
I talk to look for the opportunity. Another thing, compare it to what?
Yeah.
It's like, coach, this is so hard.
Yeah.
Like, compare it to what?
Yeah.
Like, so I think it's just to get people to be reflective.
Yeah, that perspective. Well, that's good.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And then the last question here, right? So what are you working on now, and how can people reach out to you and kind of follow you?
Okay, so what I'm working on is just preparing for our upcoming year, trying to be the best person I can be for our student athletes, and then for the upcoming class of grad students coming in and get them and hopefully have a great year, develop them and get them ready to go. Best way to contact me, I'd probably say my email, which is kamalm@merrimack.edu. And then I'm on Instagram at Kamal_Mike and Twitter at Coach_KamalMC. I go on the socials, but as a strength and conditioning coach, I'm not on there as much as I. Actually, I'm pretty proud that I don't go on there as much as I probably would have if we had social media when I was in college.
Yeah. So. It's a big time trap. Yeah, definitely. Correct. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Coach. I really look forward to putting this out and getting some feedback from it. I learned a lot from it, and I think the listeners are going to learn a lot. So once again, thank you, and I look forward to connecting again in the future.
Great. Thank you again for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again for joining us. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, or share, or all three, on your social media platform of choice. In addition, if you would please give it a rating on iTunes, it would really help. I appreciate your time and continued support. And until next time, this is the Game Meter Performance Podcast.